Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, villagers, shows, desolate peasants, vassals, citizens. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to review Obama's 2013 State of the Union. And as I've said before, the things that I do for my audience. So yes, I sat through an hour of that, including having to look at John Boehner's sad face the entire night, and then really despicable pans over to the likes of Lindsey Graham with his pinched up little face, and Paul Ryan with his bulging eyeballs, and Nancy Pelosi, who looks like she put on a few pounds, and I hope she kept a few of those fat pantsuits in her closet for these kind of occasions. But that said, I watched the Obama State of the Union, and I will go over it in my inimitable style that my audience has come to expect from me. So first of all, we get the obligatory reference to a political giant. In this case, it's John F. Kennedy. Last time it was Abraham Lincoln. So then, of course, Obama liked to immediately reference the Constitution, which, of course, he's shattered over the last 5 years, just like his predecessor, George Bush. But, you might as well talk about it because that makes people believe that you actually believe in it. And then the bullshit parade started. So, of course, he said he created 6 million jobs and new jobs. Is that the same 6 million new jobs he claimed to have created the last State of the Union? So it's still 6 million jobs. I mean, you haven't created more since the last State of the Union. So that's bullshit. And he said the housing market's healing. And that's debatable. So since it's debatable, I'll call bullshit on that. Because he mentioned that home sales are up 50%, but what he didn't mention is that 75% of them are distressed home asset sales to investors, and a lot of Chinese investors. In fact, Chinese investors are buying tons of housing out in California. So that's bullshit. Then he talked about the stock market resurgence, as if that has anything to do with the real economy. So we have central banks all over the world pumping money into the market and jacking up the stock markets around the globe. And is any jobs being created out of that? I don't think so. Is anything really being fixed other than the banks getting filled with money? That's pretty much it. So then Obama mentioned that corporate profits have skyrocketed and the middle class has been left behind. And I'm glad he's aware of that. In light of the fact that he has had no policies that would actually rectify or even address that problem. So I call bullshit on that. Then he says that military cuts jeopardize our military readiness. And that's somewhat true. If you're trying to build a vast global empire with a military that can eventually take over the entire world, then yeah, there's never going to be enough money. But that said, the fact that there aren't really any cuts, there's just reduction of future spending, I could hardly imagine that it jeopardizes our military readiness. So I call bullshit on that. Then he talks about how we'd rather not be laying off teachers, cops, and firefighters, which is true. But, of course, his policies have led to the laying off of teachers, cops, and firefighters. Although, frankly, when I look around, it doesn't seem like any cops have been getting laid off. So I call bullshit on that. And here's a moment that wasn't bullshit that was pretty good. He said, our government moves from one manufactured crisis to the next. And I'm glad to see him mention that, because that's exactly what our government does. It manufactures these crises and then offers some lame solution that actually will just create another crisis. Then he picked out 3 lame corporations to show as champions of the new economy: Caterpillar, Apple, and Ford. Of course, all of which have a lot of skeletons in the closet right now, and hardly hold them up as exemplifying the new economic recovery. Notable was his lack of mentioning GM like he did last year. And then he brought out some threats. He said because we couldn't pass any of his climate change legislation in his first term, he's now threatening to just issue executive orders. So we can look for some moves in that direction. Maybe he's going to get his carbon credit global empire started by an executive order. So I call bullshit on that. And then he talks about infrastructure repair, and I call bullshit on that. He's had 4 years to do it. He did some stimulus projects, and that's about it. But that's just lip service, so that's bullshit. And then he went on about education, and said we need to make colleges more affordable. That's laughable. The last 4 years, he's done nothing while college tuitions continue to skyrocket, and the student debt loan is just about to burst. They are loaded up with massive debt. And of course, he's been part of that, so that's bullshit. And then he wants to push comprehensive immigration reform. And so he's pandering to his Democratic base now, because he could have done something about immigration the last 4 years, but he didn't. He's too busy with covering up Fast and Furious, I suppose. So that's bullshit. And he mentioned that we have the lowest border crossings in 40 years. And that's a quote. And that's bullshit, because the reason why we have the lowest border crossings in 40 years is because the Mexican economy looks pretty good compared to ours. So people are either returning to Mexico or they're not bothering to come over. So that's a half bullshit, because it's a half truth. And then he's all, into talking about the Violence Against Women Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act and all that stuff. So everybody gets their special interest pandered to. And he talked about raising the federal minimum wage to $9 an hour. I call bullshit on that, because he said no one should live in poverty. The current poverty level at the current national minimum wage is $14,000 for what, a family of four? That's well below the level of poverty. That's practically destitution. And $9 an hour, raising the minimum wage to $9 an hour isn't gonna fix that at all. So family of four makes $18,000 a year, and they're going to go on a spending spree and join the middle class. Hardly likely. And then he talked about the idea of tying minimum wage to the cost of living. And considering all the government workers, of course, get automatic raises, cost of living raises year after year after year. And the fact that nobody's wages in Washington are really tied to anything. How about being tied to inflation or something like that? But anyway, that's just a bunch of bullshit. He's just talking out his ass, and nothing's really going to happen. And then he kind of boasted that war in Afghanistan will end at the end of next year. So we got a big round of applause for that. But when they panned over to the generals, they looked pretty bored and unconvinced, because they know as well as the rest of us that we're going to be in Afghanistan for fucking forever. So that's bullshit. And then talked about how Al-Qaeda is the shadow of its former self, but that we're going to help all our allies in the world fight Al-Qaeda-related groups around the globe, like in Mali. And I find that rather interesting, too, because if Al-Qaeda is a shadow of its former self, how come our anti-terrorism empire and war machinery is bigger than ever and needs more and more of everything, including our tax dollars? So that's bullshit. If Al-Qaeda is almost gone, then we can wind down the war on terror, right? And I did find it interesting that he talked about that we won't have the need to occupy countries anymore. And this is something I brought up in a lot of videos before about the new paradigm of military power, U.S. military power in the world, and how we are going to shift from occupying countries and fielding large conventional forces in the field. We're going to rely on special operations, drones, undeclared wars, mercenaries, and training and arming and using native armies for cannon fodder and to generate cash for the military-industrial complex. And then talk about the audacity of dope. Obama had the audacity to bring up the term transparency. He's talking about some of these new programs he wants to do and how we're going to up the ante with transparency. And they've even made the Bush administration blush when it comes to all this ballyhoo about transparency. The Obama administration has been one of the least transparent in history, and yet he boasts of being perhaps the most transparent in history. So that's a double bullshit on that, Barack Obama. And then, of course, he's talking about executive order about cybersecurity. So this is actually a way to circumvent the fact that the Congress has repeatedly struck down the government's attempts to apply censorship to the internet, control the internet, and control information, control freedom of speech. So now he's probably just going to put out an executive order so he won't have to bother with the American people and privacy and the Constitution and Congress. And then he brought up, interestingly, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and I recommend my video about the Trans-Pacific Partnership because I call bullshit on Obama on that, too, because he talked about how we were going to revamp all our trade agreements and take another look at the NAFTA and not go for all these trade agreements that give us huge disadvantages, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership is exactly that. It will cost more American jobs and create more censorship, and has all sorts of corporate handouts in it. And much to my surprise, he announced the Transatlantic Partnership, modeled after the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and it will be a similar agreement with Europe. So I'll probably be doing a video on that soon, because if it's anything like the one we're going to do in Asia, it's going to royally fuck the United States of America. But that's what those are all about. So he's got a new one. So that's another double bullshit on Obama. And then he talked about world poverty and all that kind of shit. And why should he give a shit? He's overseeing a financial industry that's speculating on food and driving food prices up all over the globe and pushing more and more people into poverty all around the globe, not to mention the fact that we have a record number of Americans living in poverty. But we don't want to talk about that, do we? So bullshit on you, Barack Obama. And then, of course, there's two events of the night that got the loudest applause. One was at the end when he started talking about gun control and showed all the victims of shootings in Congress. And I'd like to see Congress with a lot of victims of shootings by the American military around the globe. That would be a pretty crowded room too. But we just have room for some victims of American crime, and I don't want to downplay that. I feel for the families and all the tragedies that they've gone through, but this political opportunism makes my stomach turn. And then the second biggest applause of the night, when a round of applause from both sides of the aisle, and a standing ovation, was when Barack Obama talked about renewing our allegiance to Israel. So I guess Barack Obama, when he got in that room with Benjamin Netanyahu made sure he knew who was boss, and Obama got the message. So, and he'll be visiting Israel in March. So that'll probably be when they have the champagne party to announce the war on Iran. So watch for that in March. And so I call bullshit on that, Barack Obama, because I'm more interested in standing up for the United States of America. And Israel is more than capable of taking care of itself. And then he talked about, got into the gun control issue. Of course, that we knew that was going to be the slam bang finish. He actually didn't talk about the economy as much as people thought, and he shouldn't, because he knows the recovery is a lie. It's all smoke and mirrors. So why bring it up? Because he's just opening himself up to be a target. So he talked about regulations to keep criminals from guns, which of course is completely retarded. So I call bullshit on that, Barack Obama, because regulations don't keep guns from criminals. Regulations keep guns from citizens. Criminals get guns. They'll get guns. It doesn't matter what you do with laws. The criminals will get guns, and that's the whole point. If you try to outlaw guns, the only people with guns are going to be the bad guys. And then he brought up this other retarded idea that the police are outgunned. They're so worried the police are outgunned. By who? The Soviet Union? I don't see how they could possibly feel outgunned in the United States. And let me remind you, too, as a citizen, as an armed citizen, as a citizen who's concerned about tyranny, I feel a little overwhelmed by the arming of the police. Why do they need to be armed like a military group to basically control domestic population? So I feel threatened. If anybody's outgunned, it's me. So and then he brought up the sad story of that Chicago majorette, and used that as an example, who was at his inauguration and returned to Chicago only to be shot and killed. And once again, it's a sad story, but to see her face pasted up over there and have Obama use it for another shameless example of political opportunism just makes me sick. And that would have been a great finale to leave the Obama State of the Union with a feeling of sickness. But I pretty much walk away from every political event except a Ron Paul speech feeling a little sick to my stomach. But he finished with kind of a whimper, talking about citizens, and I'm not sure how to take that from him. One could say he should have said comrades. That's a little shout out to all my neocon GOP status quo bootlicker friends out there. But citizens, I'm rather piqued. My interest is piqued about what Obama's idea of citizens and citizenship should be. The idea actually makes me a little nervous. So there's my relatively quick wrap-up touching on the highlights of the Obama's 2013 Laugh-a-thon, and great stuff. And I pretty much went to bed and had a migraine after that. Didn't get much sleep last night, so I'm a little punchy. So if anybody thinks I was a little too rough on Obama, that's too bad. I call bullshit on you too. So bullshit on you, Obama. Just like last State of the Union. Just a bullshit sandwich made out of bullshit pancakes, bullshit bread, and horse meat. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.